Well, Essendon has released their updated injury list, and there's quite a few players on it, including some time frames for returns for some of these players. So we're going to go through that list right now. So Harrison Jones first. Harrison Jones dislocated his ankle a couple of weeks ago, and his estimated return is 4 to 5 weeks. It looks like he's progressing well, so that will put his return shortly after the mid-season bye. Once again, another one of our taller players, over 190 centimetres, who is out. Jordan Ridley, also 5 weeks away from returning. He also will be back after the mid-season bye. That's the amazing thing about some of these injuries. They're not 1 to 2 week injuries. They're all long injuries, at least a month or minimum of a month. So Ridley won't be back until after the mid-season bye as well. Further complicating matters as well is, of course, the club are going to be conservative with someone like Ridley, given his history of injuries, his history of soft tissue injuries. Some players you might be ready to bring them back, but with someone like Ridley, they're not going to want to take any risks. So, you know, with players like that, you can almost add an extra week to them because you just don't want to make sure that they're 100% ready to go. Sardar Hooley had hamstring tightness early in Saturday night's VFL clash with Richmond. He had scans yesterday morning. It turns out that he has got a hamstring strain, and it's a pretty bad one. He's also going to miss 4 to 6 weeks. So it's bad luck for El Hooley. His run and dash would have been important. I reckon he probably would have been in the team. Given our injury problems at the moment, he would have been in the team on Thursday night against the Brisbane Lions. I would have predicted anyway he would have played. But he also will be out until after the bye. Langford has a quad injury. He suffered this while kicking the ball. Apparently, when you suffer it in the act of kicking, it can be worse because you're putting more strain into the muscle when you do that. That's what I've heard and what I've read. And look, under Brad Scott's coaching, Langford until recently hadn't missed a game. And then, of course, he suffered that 6-week hamstring injury earlier and now another 6 weeks. So he's effectively going to miss half the season, 12 weeks or so. He also will be out until after the bye. It's worth noting, look, Langford wasn't in great form. You don't wish that on anybody, of course. I think given his form, the opportunity for him to come back via the VFL is probably more likely. I don't think Ridley, for example, would come back via the VFL and Reid, and we'll get to Reid in a minute. But Langford has been struggling a little bit this year to find just his place in the team. You know, he just can't seem to get going, so he's going to have to go through that rehabilitation. He'll be available after the bye, but I would suspect that he would probably come back via the VFL, just given his lack of form. So the big one, Zack Reid. Now, Zack Reid, you know, was taken out of the game almost it seemed anyway, the narrative at the time on Friday night's match was that he was taken out as a precaution because he felt, you know, a slight strain in his hamstring, or what he felt could be a strain in his hamstring. And they didn't want to take any risks, so they pulled him out as a precaution. Now, for those that don't know, Zack Reid had issues with his left hamstring initially. That was the one that was giving him problems throughout his career. And they found out that it was smaller than his right one. So he went overseas during the off-season, got all this diagnosis. He was given certain exercises to do, things to do, which would build up that left hamstring so that it was the same size as the right. That was kind of the crux of the issue, apparently. So he has sort of recovered from that, and he's done those, you know, the drills, the exercises, the things to build up that hamstring so that it's the same size as the right. But the injury to his hamstring is on the right. It's the different hamstring. So I don't know whether that's good news or bad news. We'll take it as kind of good news because you don't really want a recurring injury to the same side. It's to the right side. So, you know, take that for what you will. We hope, well, it's not good news when you do your hammy at all, but I'd probably rather it be the right than a recurring injury to the left. But it turns out that it's a bit more than a strain. He's also going to miss 4 to 6 weeks. So these are long-term injuries. Harrison Jones, 4 to 5. Ridley, 5. Sardar Hooley, 4 to 6. Langford, 4 to 6. And Zack Reid, 4 to 6 weeks. So this is a bad one because, you know, Zack Reid, obviously such an important player to the team. Probably our best backman this year in terms of form. Potentially a future captain. You know, just really, really bad luck. And it just hurts the team. It's these tall players as well. You know, we're really, in a position where Jaden Laverty is our key backman now this week. You know, Jaden Laverty with Reid out, with Ridley out, with McKay, and we'll get to McKay in a minute. It's just putting a lot of pressure on the back line. So Reid will be out for 4 to 6 weeks as well, unfortunately. If you like this channel, hit the like and subscribe buttons. It helps the YouTube algorithm when you do so. It will ensure you never miss a video. It only takes a second to click it. Doesn't take any time at all. And it's absolutely free. Jaden Dwin, who's yet to make his debut playing in the VFL, suffered a stress fracture a couple of weeks ago in the foot. He's going to miss 7 weeks. That's tough luck for him. He doesn't come out of contract until 2026. But look, with 4 extra players coming onto the list effectively with the mid-season draft, that's not technically true because the 4 injured players who are on the long-term injury list or the inactive list are technically not on the list, but they're going to come back on the list. So it's kind of like having 47 players on the list in a way. It's going to be really hard for players like Jaden to and Alwyn Davey and others to retain their spot on the list. The fact that he's got a 7-week foot injury doesn't help him. So hopefully he can make a full recovery. These stress fractures of the foot are no good. We all know what happened to James Hird. Derailed his career for a little while with stress fractures. So you want to make sure you get those things right. Nick Cox. Unfortunately, he's been experiencing concussion symptoms since his return to the VFL. So don't know how that's come about. I don't know whether he's received a knock or whether it's just something that's inbuilt into the brain where it's just these symptoms just keep on returning and just the twos and fro's of a contact sport. Even if you're not getting contact in the head, you can still suffer concussion if you hit the ground hard and your body is enduring sort of violent contact, that sort of thing. So that's not good for his career, to be honest. And there's no real time frame on it. This is something that you don't want to muck around with the head. It's the most important part of the body. You just don't want to take any risks. So he's entered concussion protocols. He is a to-be confirmed return. We don't quite know how long that's going to be. And look, just looking at him as a human being, I wouldn't take any risks with that whatsoever. If that means sitting him out the rest of the year, then you might have to do that. It's just something that you want to make sure you get 100% right before he takes the field again. So it's unfortunate. He came back for a couple of games in the VFL. I wasn't really too worried about how well he was playing. It was just the fact that he was out there and competing. So, to return to concussion symptoms seemingly out of nowhere, without really seemingly suffering a hit, is kind of concerning. So we hope they get that right. So Ben McKay, interesting one. He suffered a foot injury against Richmond. Apparently someone stepped on his foot, and he hasn't really got a time frame for return, has to be confirmed. But from what Brad Scott was saying and sort of reading between the lines in the press conference, it's more the short turnaround this week, the 5-day break, or the 6-day break actually, that is going to make it hard to get up for a Thursday night game. At least listening to what Brad Scott was saying, the insinuation he was making was that, well, look, if we were playing the week after, he would be every chance of playing. It's yet to be determined. We have a game against Carlton following the game against Brisbane, which is 10 days later. So, look, whenever someone's got a TBC next to their name confirmed, it's never really a good sign. Probably rather than 4 to 6 weeks. So we don't know. I don't think the club really knows what's going on there. So hopefully he's right for the game against Carlton to play on his brother the week after. He has got 10 days to prepare for that. So that would be, really a 16-day turnaround from the Richmond game to the Carlton game. Is that enough? Is that 2 weeks? Well, we'll see. But at this stage, his time frame is yet to be determined, and we need him because we are running out of tall players. The remaining players on the injury list are the 4 injured players who will be missing the season: Sam Draper, Lewis Hayes, Nick Bryan, and Tom Edwards. We will be replacing these players on Wednesday with 4 replacement players from the mid-season draft. I think this is actually a positive for Essendon for next year, not for this year. Obviously, for this year, it's a bad thing because obviously the 4 injured players are all AFL listed players and at least nominally better than their replacements. That's why they're in the AFL and the replacements currently are not. But I think from next year onwards, this could actually be a positive thing because consider what this means. We have 4 replacement players effectively coming in to replace those 4 injured players. But next year, when those 4 injured players are not injured anymore, the replacement players get to stay on the list and play alongside the now not injured quartet if those replacement players are good enough to stay on the list. So it's kind of like a bonus, a bonus player, a bonus addition to the list in a way. We'll have, in a way, temporarily 47 players on the list if you include the inactive list, the 43 players on the list, plus the 4 on the inactive list. So we're going to have to get that 47 down to something like 38 or so. I'm using 38 as a bit of an arbitrary figure for the November draft, and got SSP picks to add to the list and rookie draft and all those sort of things. But getting 47 down to 38 should result in a higher quality list with more depth than having to get 43 players down to 38, if you get what I mean. So the fact that we can effectively replace these players with 4 players on Wednesday, yet the 4 replacement players get to stay on the list themselves if they're good enough to play alongside the quartet, Draper, Hayes, Bryan and Edwards next year, just shows you it's kind of an advantage to actually get these injuries. Not in the season that you get the injuries, not then, but it's almost an advantage for the following season because you get to reap the rewards of the mid-season draft players and you get your injured players back. So it's kind of like you get the best of both worlds. So it'll be interesting to see who we pick up in the draft with that. I kind of think my logic is perhaps a little bit different to some of the other people that have been posting Essendon videos around. I think given the long-term nature of the potential of some of the players that we could pick in the mid-season draft, we should pick the best available players and not really pick for short-term need. There's only 13 weeks left in the season, guys, and that 13 weeks, it's going to go by like that. Before you know it, it's going to be done. And I don't really know about the idea of picking another ruckman who, when all the injured players come back, might be 5th in line, and would be looking at next year as, well, why have we got this player that, we needed last year, but we don't really need them now? So I'd be picking, personally, just my view. You guys might feel differently, so let me know in the comments. But, with the draft, I would probably be picking players according to the list build, according to what would be in the best interest of the team for the next 10 years, not the next 13 weeks. I'm actually not too worried about the next 13 weeks, right? I don't think we're going to be contending for the premiership or anything like that. So the last thing we want is to, pick players to fill in a particular position because we have a lot of injuries, and then those players next year are left 4th or 5th in line and have no real prospect of getting in the team, which I guess is the problem of picking for short-term injuries. I think we should be picking for, long-term, list structure. That's just my opinion, and some of you might disagree. That's fine. Let me know in the comments either way. So, what do you guys think about the injury list? It's pretty dire, it has to be said. Lots of long-term injuries. It's not so much the number of players on the list, it's really the length of time they're out. No one, apart from maybe McKay, and even that might be a bit worse than we think, but everyone is listed as at least a month away from returning. So, it's not good news, but it is something we're going to have to deal with, and we're going to have to play a hell of a game on the Gabba to put in a respectable performance with all these injury problems that we have. So I'm going to leave it there. Have a great day, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe to the channel. Go Bombers!